Keep on riding with us as we continue to broadcast the balance and defend the discourse from the Hip Hop Weekly studios. Welcome back to Civic Cypher. I am your host, Ramses Ja, and my main man, the man with the plan, Q Ward. He is probably still on an airplane somewhere over South Dakota or something, I don't know, and is missing this fantastic conversation that we're having today with the one and only Bobby Nichols, who, if you don't know, he's the former Phoenix Democratic Socialists of America's chapter chair and current member. He's the founder of Arizona Works Together, a pro-union political action committee operating at the state level. Additionally, Bobby Nichols works for the Office of the Arizona Attorney General as a state attorney representing Arizona's Department of Child Safety and Economic Security in superior and administrative court cases involving the abuse, neglect, and exploitation of minor children and vulnerable adults. And he is not speaking in that capacity today.
That is correct.
Yeah,
Thank you very much.
Had to help you out. All right.
It means a lot.
Before we go any further, of course, it is time to discuss BABA, Becoming a Better Ally, Baba. On today's Baba, we want you to check out dsausa.org. All right. I'm going to share from their website. And of course, I'm not compelling you to do this, but if it catches your ear, here are some resources. All right. Their website states the Democratic Socialists of America is the largest socialist organization in the United States with over 80,000 members and chapters in all 50 states. They believe that working people should run both the economy and society democratically to meet human needs, not to make profits for a few. They are a political and activist organization, not a party. Through campus and community-based chapters, DSA members use a variety of tactics from legislative to direct action to fight for reforms that empower working people. The Democratic Socialists of America is the largest socialist organization in the United States because they are a member-driven mass organization. I believe that working people should run both the economy and civil society, and they show their commitment to this principle by being an organization of, by, and for the working class. We're all in this together for the poor and working class to win a better world. We must care for our neighbors, build community, and fight alongside each other. As a working class organization, they are funding themselves. As workers, they are in charge of their own liberation, and they have some monumental tasks ahead of them, fights that they must win, and they can't do it alone. So you can give today because there is a world to win, and a lot more than that, it seems, at stake. Again, if you want to learn more, you can check out dsausa.org. That's dsausa.org. And you know, the more that I learn about, because, you know, to be fair, this show, we have to talk to Republicans, we have to talk to Democrats, we have to talk to Socialists, we have to talk to, you know, Tea Party people. And I think that my metric on human beings is based on kindness. Yeah. And man, if I don't find a lot of kind people in the socialist movement, man, so good for y'all. All right, let's get back to the conversation. Okay, so there was something that I wanted to ask you earlier. What would you say is people's biggest misunderstanding about socialism?
I think the biggest misunderstanding that people have about socialism is that we're going to come to your house and take your toothbrush and your car and all that. Real important distinction between personal property and private property. If you own a house, if you own a car, if you own a toothbrush, that's your personal property. Nobody's going to do anything with that. If you own a factory that employs pennies on the dollar labor in a foreign country, that is private property, and that is the sort of thing that a socialist society would not allow to be collected in the hands of one person, but would rather be a resource for the entire society to benefit
So
from.
how do people get rich under socialism?
People don't need to get rich under socialism, but they still have the capacity to trade and work with each other directly. It's not a matter of having money or not having money. It's a matter of society being run in a way that allows for everybody to have their needs met.
Okay, so we're thinking of wealth and the path to wealth in a two-dimensional fashion is what you're suggesting. There are other ways to get there under a different societal framework.
Yeah, because if you go to the grocery store and you get everything you need and you didn't really have to pay for it, that's the idea where you've already been working and contributing to the society. Eventually you get to this post-scarcity, post-borders, post-nations idea of just equality and liberty and egalitarian distribution of resources for everyone if you continue democratizing the process all the way down.
I think that there's some truth there because, as I mentioned, you know, we're talking about I think Finland comes to mind in particular. and I haven't been there, but I've been to like Switzerland, and I've been to, I don't know, I've been to a bunch of places, but I know I haven't been to Finland. But there's like rich people everywhere there. You know what I mean? And so...
Well, it's also important to remember that, like you said, it is a capitalist society with social programs.
Yeah, that's fair.
Though even in that capitalist society with intentionally social programs, you have a higher tax on the wealthy, you have a higher tax on businesses, and that's just necessary to fund the social programs that are necessary for the production and development of a sustainable society.
Now, I would not profess to have dug in as deep as you probably have, but you know what? When I look behind the curtain, you're absolutely right. You know, in this country, there's this weird thing, and then we're going to switch gears, but in this country, there's a weird thing where people like Bernie Sanders says, millionaires and billionaires need to pay their fair share of taxes, right? And then the way millionaires and billionaires push back is they say, well, I pay the same or higher taxes than you, as a percentage of my income or whatever, right? Mm-hmm. And that may be true, but their wealth is not taxed, and their capacity to borrow against the wealth is not taxed, and they get to use that and trade on this sort of imaginary money and continue to further shape society in their own image, and they don't contribute anything back based on the enormity of the wealth. So their income versus their wealth, once you get to that level, the wealth is immense. The income is a lot, but the wealth, comparatively speaking, is so immense, and that's what you're using to shape society. And so when I learned that, and I saw that kind of not happen in a place like Finland, where they actually kind of police it a little bit better, and then you see all these like cool bridges, and like the infrastructure is great, people can walk, and they're happy, kids ride bikes and everything, butterflies flap over there a little bit more, I guess. I don't know. It's like a Disney movie.
The birds fly better.
Yeah, it's like great. It's amazing. And so so that brings me to Zoran Mamdani. Mm-hmm. Okay. So talk about him. I know that his name's been in the news, but for people who might have missed it, talk about him and why he's on a roll right now.
Zoran Mamdani is a 33-year-old dues-paying Democratic Socialist of America member who recently won the Democratic primary for mayor of New York City, defeating credibly accused sexual assaulter Andrew Cuomo. Mm-hmm. And
I mean,
that's who he is.
Facts.
I don't know what else do you want me to call him. All I do is fire shots.
Go ahead, man. You came to the right place.
Zoran Mamdani is a breath of fresh air, an incredibly corrupt city that has been dealing with Democratic domination and capitalist domination through the Democratic Party. Okay. And Zoran represents a movement towards a more socially organized society, a more egalitarian means of doing taxation, of doing public resources, of turning the public resources to the public use through keeping buses free or making buses free, or freezing rents, and doing public grocery stores. I really like the public grocery store idea because it is a nice low-level thing that will affect everyday people. And at this point, he's only doing pilot programs for it just to test it, see how it goes. But this is the sort of program that you would see in those areas of the world.
If I may, do you see what I mean about kindness?
Yeah.
Like, and that moves the needle over here. Just be good to people. Like, everyone has to eat. Mm-hmm. So feed them. Like, it's in every Bible and whatever religious text, and I think it's part and parcel to our human nature. Right. And people that go against that, push back against that, it's crazy. Anyway,
I'm getting goosebumps because when Christ fed 5,000, he didn't like go ask the Romans for permission first. He didn't go
tax them, get money.
Yeah, he didn't ask, but he went and did that for the people because that was the sort of thing. Yeah. You know? And I no longer go to church, but I still have a lot of these, religious teachings going on.
Of course.
I think the sort of movement there towards empathy is a feature of socialism. And I think it's absolutely necessary right now, especially as you have alt-right, media spheres and the Donald Trump movement literally saying that empathy is a sin and a crime and these sorts of things.
Oh, okay.
I mean, this is an actual thing that you see in these alt-right media spheres where they'll say empathy is a weakness. You have to cut that out of your life.
Really?
Because if you're like worried what has happening to other people, you're not going to be able to extract as much as you can from them.
Can I tell you something now that you've mentioned that? So I spent a couple of years, this was like right toward the end of my time in college and a couple years after, where I got fixated on what is happiness, right? I was like obsessed with it. What is happiness? I was like kind of finding my way in the world, and it just seemed like a noble area of study to dive into, right? If I can spread happiness and get some for myself. So this time happened, okay? I'm reading these books, watching documentaries, going to listen to people talk, all that sort of stuff, right? And what I found out, and I'm a data guy. This show is a data show. Both of my shows are data shows, right? We deal with data. So journalistically credible, scientific method, like that sort of stuff, right? Nice. So I'll skip all the technical stuff, but as it turns out, when people are happiest is when they are in service to another person. So no matter what you do, I think that people want to be happy. I think that we could all agree on that. Nobody wakes up in the morning and says, well, how can I be more miserable, right? Yeah. So if we all want to be happy, what is borne out in the data is that you are happiest when you live your life or you do things in service to other people who cannot repay you and you don't expect to be repaid by them. Right. So yes. So I'm trying to help you make your point.
Unconditional kindness. Yeah. Unconditional love for people like you. It's life-changing. And it is the sort of movement that we need in this world right now.
Sure. Well, I mean, like I said, I totally understand. Like, I'm not going to pretend like I don't live in a nice house in a nice neighborhood. I'm not going to pretend like I don't have a Rolex and I drive a sports car and that sort of stuff.
You got a pretty cool car out there.
Thank you. I'm not going to pretend like those things aren't true. And I know that uber capitalist will draw the connection to, like, capitalism has afforded you these opportunities, right? But I know that there's still a kinder world there. Yeah. I know that there's still a world, like, make no mistake, no matter what car I have or whatever I have, I'm still a part of the meat that's going into the meat grinder, right? No matter what I do, no matter where I go. And the heartbreaking part about it is my children are too. Yeah. Like, I have 2 boys and they're just happy little spirits. They give me no grief. They're just
beautiful, yeah.
And they're as they age, they're just becoming meat for the grinder, right? And so I've, again, gotten to the point where imagining what a better world would look like has become more important to me. And this is part of the reason why Bernie Sanders' message seemed to resonate with me, because when people lead with, I mean, I don't want to get off topic here, but it appealed to me. I mean, for our listeners, obviously, you decide for yourself what's right for you. But yeah, no, I definitely appreciate Mamdani and what he's doing with the grocery stores, and I appreciate kind of the spirit of the movement, I'll say. I want to get more from you before we go. So, let's talk about, first off, Elon Musk started his own party. You mentioned that the Democratic Socialists of America is not a political party.
That's right.
He just started a new political party called the America Party or something, if I'm not mistaken. I don't know where it lies on the political spectrum relative to, like, Democrats, Republicans. I'd imagine it's somewhere over there on the right. Just him not agreeing fully with what his former best friend does. But what do you make of that? What are your thoughts on that? Any thoughts at all?
My thought is that it'll probably be a failure unless he gets someone else to take it over, like most of the stuff he does.
Okay, that's fair. All right, we don't have to pontificate on Elon Musk.
I would say that it's likely going to lean into that right-wing populism, that anti-empathy movement that we were just talking about. Yeah. Because that is sort of the sphere of thought that he comes from. He is a man incapable of empathy, as far as I'm aware. Yeah. And I can only imagine that the political party he leads would be equally lacking in empathy and good common sense.
Sure. I my personal feeling is that a person like him, like I people would send me, like, screenshots of his social media for a long time, and he started to kind of delve into that super far right wing propagandists where they take data and they call it real data, but it lacks critical context and it lacks historical framing and so forth, and then they purport that to be fact, to suggest somehow that these people are bad or these people are incapable of X, Y, and Z or whatever. And it mirrored really, again, far-right propaganda. And then I had already kind of lost him at that point.
Yeah.
But then he got on stage and did that Nazi salute a couple of times. And then that really threw me.
times, too.
Yeah,
it wasn't
that really threw me.
Yeah.
So after that, I'm like, okay, this dude's a Nazi.
What's interesting about that is his dad, the guy who actually bought into the apartheid emerald
wasn't he a Nazi too or something?
He was an apartheid emerald mine owner in South Africa.
Okay.
He owned, he has the blood of workers on his hands.
Sure.
100%.
Sure.
And his response to Elon Musk getting more directly connected to Donald Trump was like, oh my God, this is great. My son and I are going to be able to relate to each other again. He's been working with these liberals for so long. I'm going to have to like cut him off. But now that he's back to working with the conservatives and the fascists, I can absolutely, break bread with my son again.
That's a little gross, but yeah. All right. So talk to me about, because a lot of people listening to this show are really concerned about global events.
Yeah.
Okay. So, Palestine is something that we talk about a lot here, Israel and Palestine.
Yeah.
What should people know about the Democratic Socialist of America's take on what's taking place over there?
Well, because we're a democratic organization of socialists, we have a wide variety of takes, but I will say that the common theme with all of those is that the Palestinian people deserve liberation, and they're being oppressed by a fascist state. And the desire, a fascist state not only, but a fascist state that is supported by the American government, which is ultimately diving further and further into fascism at all times.
Sure.
So, as a socialist, it is my belief that I stand in solidarity with the oppressed peoples of the world.
Okay.
And so I support unconditionally the Palestinian people's right to liberation. And to the extent that we get asked, does Israel have a right to exist? And you see Zoran getting asked this as a gotcha question on stage, I think he has the right answer. I think every nation has a right to exist as a regular non-ethno-nationalist nation. I do not believe in the right of ethno-nationalist states to exist.
Sure.
And to the extent that Israel is becoming more and more and more an ethno-nationalist state rather than a true democracy that represents all who live within those borders, it is not representative of the people that it actually claims to represent, but in fact mostly just dominates.
I found out that they have free healthcare in Israel.
And you know who pays for it?
We do.
We do.
Yeah, isn't that crazy?
We don't have free healthcare.
That's crazy, right?
Yeah. It's a colonial project.
Yeah.
And it is being bankrolled by the colonizers of the United States and England. And you see how it was originally transferred as a British project where they got left guns after World War I. The Zionists were given guns by the British government following World War I in order to do the first ethnic cleansing of Palestine.
Oh, no.
And then after World War II, the guns were left by Americans and the British as well. So the process just got worse and worse and worse from there.
The most heartbreaking thing about this whole thing is that how there's the potential to speak up for Palestinians and have that be conflated with anti-Semitism, because at least in this country, historically speaking, black people and Jewish people have worked together to achieve a lot.
Yeah.
And personally speaking, I've grown up with a lot of Jewish people, and personally they know obviously that I love them and their communities, but I've seen how they can use that narrative, not Jewish people, but how Israel can use that narrative to kind of quell dissent, and that feels a little strange. Now, I don't want to dwell too long on that because we're running short on time.
Yeah,
but
I could go on that one for a while.
I figured, and you got a lot of context for it, so that's great. We're gonna have to have you back eventually, but talk to me about, well, first off, do me a favor.
Yeah.
Say a good thing about capitalism.
Capitalism has expanded humanity's capacity for production in such a way that we now have the ability to turn away from this scarcity model and instead provide for everyone's needs.
So capitalism has run its course.
Yep.
It did its job, and we're kind of in the late stages of it.
And that is ultimately a very orthodox Marxist perspective, where you say capitalism is one of the stages of human development and socialism is the one that comes after it.
Okay, and you're saying we're ready. Okay, so you're not super mad at a country that has capitalism and strong socialist programs?
That is, I believe, a movement on the path towards socialism.
Okay, understood. All right, so talk to me about why socialism might push voters away in purple states. You're from Arizona.
Yes.
That's a purple state. Okay. Talk to us about why that might happen.
I think a lot of this goes to the Red Scare propaganda that we talked about earlier.
Yeah,
and I mean, ultimately what it is that we've had the wealthiest people in the world who control the media, who control the cultural output, who control, what billboards you see when you drive to work, who control what hours you go to work, telling you that both socialism and anything that represents socialism is bad. Okay. You get the Red Scare where you're literally driving communists and socialists out of government positions and blacklisting them from being able to be in films and TV and industries and stuff like that in the 50s. And then once that sort of becomes faux pas, you see them turning towards pushing down unions and working against tenant organizing and these sort of accoutrements of socialism, these little things that remind the capitalists of a more egalitarian way of doing business, that they say we can't have this because they'll think about it and they'll be like, oh my God, that's socialism. We want more socialism, but we still have firefighters and we still have a post office for now. Okay. So like these socialist programs, they last because they're incredibly useful. And like once you put them in place, it's really hard to take them away from people without inspiring incredible resentment for the people who took it away. Sure. I think I'm getting a little off topic.
No. Well, wherever you're leading us, this is like these are things so much that maybe some of our listeners know this, but I certainly don't know all this stuff. This is great.
I love the history of it. I think it's a really interesting thing to be able to talk about.
I appreciate that. So let me ask you this. Give me like 30 seconds here. Okay. We've been talking about socialism, and I never asked the first question. In your own words, socialism, democratic socialism. Is there a difference? If so, what is it? 30 seconds.
Socialism is a societal system where everybody has what they need to survive, where the wording is from each according to their ability to each according to their need. That is the core of socialism. Okay. Democratic socialism means we're getting there through a democratic process.
Okay. So this is pretty cut and dry for...
Yeah. It's not too complicated. Yeah. Socialism means the working people have control of society and get to take care of themselves, and democratic socialism means they voted in.
Okay, last question, just a yes or no answer. Is it easy to switch from capitalism to socialism, or is it difficult?
I think that
it's difficult.
It can be difficult, but it doesn't have to be. The reason that it's difficult is because the capitalists fight it so much. But at the end of the day, like the systems are there, the processes are there, the technology is there. We just have to have the will of the people and the revolutionary spirit to do it. Okay.
Well, I'm confident that people are going to want to hear more of your thoughts on what it takes to get from here to there. Bear in mind that we do have to have conversations like these with other folks too.
Absolutely.
But you have represented yourself well, and the DSA quite well, and we appreciate that because famously, Q and I were DJs, and we started this show, and we get to learn from brilliant minds like you. We didn't take all the history classes that you've taken. So again, I appreciate you taking the time to come out. Once again, Bobby Nichols. Plug your social media real quick. Anything like that you want to?
Let's just plug the DSA website again. It's dsausa.org. There
you go. Okay.
We have a world to win, and we have room for you in this movement.
All right, and be sure to follow us on all social media at Civic Cypher. I'm at Ramses Ja. Q is I am Q Warden. Until next week, y'all. Peace.